Welcome to 3 Minutes with Matt Lambo. In this podcast, we examine today's trending topics while isolating common sense truth from a heightened human consciousness perspective. Our cause is to help educate and unite the next generation with a simplified, more beneficial understanding of the world around them. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to our podcast and forward this episode to someone who could benefit from its wisdom. We're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so please share the podcast with a friend and tell them that we're here. Okay, let's go. Number 5, understanding the battle for the money, banks versus the poor. Let me make one thing clear at the outset. This podcast is not a shot at those people who work for banks. Most industries have questionable practices, so it is not personal. It's simply an exploration into the banking industry and the practice of making money from lending money. Here we go. What's in your wallet? We've all seen countless bank commercials. Most recently, we have multi-millionaire Taylor Swift asking what's in our wallet on behalf of her friends at Capital One Banks. We see these commercials ad nauseam with our most beloved celebrities. But very few of us understand just how these banks can afford their countless commercials. So, how do banks truly make money and just who pays them? Short answer, the poor. To begin our exploration, let's do a little parable in human morality, or an illustration of selfishness versus humility. Imagine for a moment there are only two people on earth, you and me. However, I was born with $1 million and you with none. It's just the two of us, but for some reason, I'm rich and you're broke. That's right. I was born into the world with $1 million and you've got nothing. Now, common sense human morality would probably conclude that I should give you half, right? Of course, I was bestowed the million and you have none. This would give each of us a $500,000. Fair and humble, right? Now, turns out I'm not humble, but selfish. I don't want to give you half, but I agreed to do so as long as you pay me back. This is the way that banking would occur on a civilized, semi-humble planet Earth. Those with money would lend it to those without, with the simple understanding that it would be paid back. The premise of making money while lending money would seem absurd. Common sense humility would dictate that those without should just keep the half because that's fair. But that would be asking way too much of human nature. Well, that's about 3 minutes and the end of part 1. Please stay tuned for part 2. Part 2. Now, let's introduce today's banking practices. I'm not satisfied with the simple return of my money, so I want you to pay me back plus interest. Let's say 2%. Now I am making money while lending money. Is that ethical? Of course not. I now make money on the back of those less fortunate. No longer satisfied, I recognize your need for money, so now I want you to pay me 7%. And now that I think about it, I want the 7%, plus I'm going to amortize it, which means I'm going to have you pay the interest part up front. So now I'm good. I'm glad I was the one born with the money, and you're the one who owes me. Now, at this point, many might be thinking this parable is flawed in that we aren't actually born with money, right? Well, think about that. Those that control our banking system were indeed born with the money, and those that worked and earned their money in turn gave that earned money back to the banking system. So yes, today's banking system has inherited all of the money. So let's continue. Now I've decided because you have little money that you can't be trusted to make your payments on time. Therefore, I'm now going to charge you a late fee at my discretion should you show any signs of delinquency. Furthermore, I'm going to track your delinquencies or your late payments, or shall I say your human deficiencies, and give you what I'll call a credit rating. If your human inadequacies become intolerable to my liking, I'm going to raise your interest rate. We will have a zero tolerance policy toward the poor moving forward. And finally, as more human beings arrive here on planet Earth without money, most human beings are born without money. I will take the money you've paid me in interest, amortized interest, late fees, and any other penalties I have assessed you, and continue my practice of earning money while lending money with the rest of the saps born without money. This will create a planet Earth where people are enslaved to the banking system. Me. Again, this is not a shot at those people who work for banks. This is a simple illustration of how banks make their money, and more importantly, our simple, unacceptable human tolerance to such questionable practices. Now, let's fast forward to today, Halloween, October 31st, 2023, and back to our celebrity commercials. So, what's in your wallet? I can't speak for the rest of the world, but in my world of America, our tallest buildings have the names of banks. Our sports arenas carry bank names. Some of the best, most expensive, most visible pieces of property in our small towns have lavish buildings with bank names. So, Planet Earth in 2023 is certainly run by, or shall I say, controlled by banks. If I'm an alien visiting planet Earth for the first time, I would surmise this world is controlled by banks. And the amazing part is that we're used to it. Not many human beings give this much thought. Banks rule the world. Who cares? It doesn't affect me. Well, let's visit our neighborhood bank for a moment and examine some of these effects. Our neighborhood banking institutions, those that supposedly help our neighborhoods grow and prosper, again, own the most desirable lots in our town. Would our communities not be better served by using these properties for secondhand stores or local nonprofits like my very own Hastings Family Services? Well, that's for another episode. As we enter our local bank, we first recognize the big banner out front advertising the great value of their credit card. Notice the word credit. Who needs credit? You're right, the poor. So on one side of the banner, we advertise that I can make up to 0.01% interest on the money I give them in my savings account, and they will lend my money to my neighbor on a credit card for up to 30%. Am I doing the math correctly? I wonder if this is why they have the best and tallest buildings. Seems there's big money in lending other people's money. So, as you can see, this is easy to understand. And it's not necessarily the bankers that are the problem, but rather the concept of banking itself. Could this be why so many people cannot get ahead of the curve? Could it be that banks have all the money and the people are financially enslaved to them? Again, this isn't a shot at people who work in banks. It's a simple observation that says this is absurd. Listen, I certainly understand that many have worked hard for their money and deserve the spoils of that effort. However, that doesn't make it right. We aimlessly put our money in banks with complete disregard for the implications. Now the world is a mess. I like to call it the battle for the money, banks versus the poor. If you haven't noticed, the world has become a very expensive place to live. By the way, were you ever told that high interest rates are necessary to curb inflation? Yeah, me too. Today we have 7% 30-year mortgage rates. What a proud moment for the banking concept. Pure insanity. Who are the banks? Who gets all the money from the people and especially the poor? We call them bankers, but that's not necessarily what role they play in our lives. These people making all their money off the people and the poor are our most beloved celebrities, politicians, and other influencers. Big names like Oprah Winfrey, Bill Gates, and yep, Taylor Swift. Those that love and endorse making money while lending money. I can't speak for the rest of the world, but here in America, the pawns of these power brokers are called establishment Democrats and Republicans. Yep, our political parties are controlled by bankers. Hey, money is power, but you already knew that. Bankers pay our favorite celebrities millions of dollars to ask us what's in our wallet. Ironic, wouldn't you say? Millionaires asking the rest of us what's in our wallet? Well, not much, thanks to you. Okay, ever heard of the Great Awakening? If not, this is a concept that surmises humanity at some point will wake up and recognize that they've been bamboozled. Could it be that the Great Awakening might just be when humanity finally understands the absolute cruelty of banking? That every 30 days, when the moon passes, humanity as a whole gets out our checkbooks and we pay our monthly entitlements to bankers. Fair enough. Financial obligations are part of life on this planet. But is it fair that those with affluence should pay 1% and those without should pay upwards of 30%? Why is rent, school, food, gas, and the overall cost of living on planet Earth so expensive? Think about that the next time you pass banking skyscrapers and are inundated with their Trust Us credit union and banking commercials. And who pays for it? Answer: the world's poor people. That might not include you, but it includes most. So, what's the solution? We need banks to some degree, right? Absolutely, but we limit their right to exploit the poor with a 2% max rate. That's right, we ban amateurization and have the rich and the poor pay a simple 2% max rate. That would be fair. Think about that. Well, that all sounds fine, but what will happen? Here's what will happen. Overnight, trillions of dollars will not go from the banks to the poor, but rather that money will just stay in the wallets of the poor. And in my world, that's a good thing. Well, that's it for this episode. Please reach out if you have any questions, concerns, or if you have a topic that you'd like us to explore. And please subscribe to our podcast or share it if you like it. This is powerful wisdom we can only hope that our world's internet influencers might someday come to understand. Hey, check out our previous episodes if you haven't done so, and for sure tune into our next. It's even better. Remember, this is not an indoctrination. Think for yourself. You got this. Thanks for listening.